The Grimm's Brothers story of brother and sister, sometimes called the Little Faun. There's once a brother and a sister who decided to run away from their stepmother, and they ran from their home into the forest where they sought sanctuary. But unbeknown to the brother and the sister, their stepmother was a witch, and realizing that her stepchildren had run away, she enchanted the springs in the forest so that terrible things would happen to anyone who drank from them. So when the brother and the sister came to the first spring, and the brother went to drink from it, the sister could hear the spring speaking to her. As the water bubbled, she heard a warning, saying, "Whoever drinks from me will be turned into a tiger." So the sister said to her brother, "Don't drink from the spring. You'll be turned into a tiger and you would tear me to pieces." So the two children carried on walking through the forest until they came to another spring. And the brother said, "I am so thirsty, I must drink." But the bubbling spring said to the sister, Whoever drinks from me will be turned into a wolf." And sister said, "Don't drink from the spring, dear brother. You'll be turned into a wolf and you will tear me to pieces." So the two children carried on through the forest, and they came to a third spring. And as the spring bubbled away, it said to the sister, "Whoever drinks from me will be turned into a fawn." And sister said to her brother, "Don't drink from the spring. You'll be turned into a fawn and run away from me." And the brother said, "I must drink. I am so thirsty." So he cupped his hands and drank the crystal clear, beautiful water from the spring. And in the space of a heartbeat he was turned into a fawn. But his sister found some soft rushes growing by the brook, and she plaited them into a rein which she placed around his neck. And she led her brother, the fawn, deeper into the forest. And there they found, because this is a folk tale, a little cottage. And as there was no one living in the cottage, and brother and the sister needed somewhere to live, they moved in. And every day the sister went out into the forest foraging for roots and berries and nuts. And she found lush grass for her brother. And so the two lived in peace and contentment in the forest for some time, until one day the king came hunting. And the sound of the hunt and the excitement of the hunt and the chase wafted into the little cottage and reached the ears of little brother Faun. He said, "Let me go. Open the door for me. Let me go. I want to join the hunt. I want to run." And sister said, "But if they catch you, I will be left all alone in the cottage in the woods." But the fawn said, "Let me go. I want to run. I want to be part of the hunt." So after some time the sister agreed and said, "When you come back at the end of the day, knock on the door and say, 'Little sister, I am here,' and I will know that it's you, and I won't let anyone else in." So the little fawn left the cottage and joined the hunt. And he ran and he ran and he ran and he ran so fast that no one could catch him. And the second day, the fawn ran and ran and ran, but a stray arrow just caught his ankle just a little bit, and he bled just a little bit, and his trail of blood took him to the cottage. And one of the king's servants, one of the king's huntsmen, followed the trail of blood and heard the fawn say, little sister, I am here," and saw the beautiful maiden who opened the door. And so the huntsman told all this to the king, and the king was intrigued why a beautiful maiden should be living so deep in the forest. The third day, the little fawn, her brother, went and ran and ran and ran with the hunt. And it was that day that the king followed the fawn back to the cottage. And when he saw the beautiful maiden who opened the door, he said to her, "Come with me, be my wife, be my queen. I will make you happier than you have ever been before." So the sister said, "But my fawn must come too, and you must promise that nothing will hurt him and nothing will harm him." And the king promised. And the sister accompanied the king back to his palace. And they were married, and they were happy, and the fawn was well looked after. And after a year, the queen, as she was by then no longer a maid, gave birth to a beautiful, healthy, bouncing baby boy. But by this time, word as to what had happened had reached the ears not only of their stepmother, but also of her daughter. Now, whereas the sister was beautiful and had a tender heart, the stepsister was ugly and had only one eye and was as greedy as her mother. So the two visited the palace, pretending to care about the young queen. And they went up to her bedchamber, pretending to be the midwife and her servant. And they said to the king, "The queen needs rest and the queen needs peace." And they ran a lovely hot bath for her and convinced her that having a soak in a lovely hot bath would be good for her, for she had just given birth. But they lit a fire in the room and they locked the door. And I don't know what they did to the fire, but the smoke of the fire suffocated the queen. So that night, when the king came up to the bedchamber, laying in the bed was not his beautiful, lovely wife, the mother of his son. It was her ugly stepsister. But the stepmother, still posing as a midwife, said, "She needs rest, she needs peace. Do not disturb her." Now the nurse, who was taking care of the baby, was surprised that night when her queen, as pale can be, walked into the room picked up the baby son, put him to her breast, and began to suckle him. And the second night, and the third. And after some time, the nurse told the story to the king and said about how she had seen the queen, looking as pale as a ghost, come into the room. So by the fourth night, the ghost of the queen had begun to speak to the nurse and said, "Tell my husband to swing his sword 3 times above my head." So the nurse relayed this to the king, and he did as the nurse had said, and he swung his sword 3 times above the head of the ghost that was his queen. And blood began to flow in her veins once more, colour returned to her cheeks, and she related to her husband the king the terrible things that her stepmother had done the time in the forest, and explained that the faun was really her brother. So the king pronounced sentence on the stepmother, and he had her burned. And as soon as her body turned to ashes, the spell she had placed on the faun vanished, and there where the faun had been was the handsome young man who was the brother. So they all lived happily ever after. I always think that's, in a way, quite a disturbing story. I think there's something. Shape-shifting is voluntarily, magically turning yourself into an animal, whereas being turned into an animal against your will is, of course, something completely different and very scary. But it's always lovely, and it is a pattern which runs through the Brothers Grimm stories of seeking sanctuary in a forest when you need to run away. And of course, this is something that people did for a very long time, and of course, this resonates clearly with us through the Robin Hood stories. So there you are. But now, of course, we have woods and we have forests, and by and large, they have picnic tables. So if we get down to the woods, we're not likely to find springs which speak to us. We're not likely to find wolves or bears, but we are likely to find joy, peace, and serenity. So I hope you find time to go to the woods and experience some joy, peace, serenity, and maybe have a picnic. Hope to see you again soon.